Yang Mulia Sekretaris Jenderal PBB Antonio Guterres, Sri Baginda, Yang Mulia para pemimpin ASEAN. Preambul Piagam ASEAN dan PBB sama-sama dimulai dengan We the Peoples. Ini artinya rakyat harus terus jadi prioritas. Dan di tengah tantangan dunia yang semakin kompleks, perang dan konflik, krisis pangan, krisis energi, krisis keuangan, dan bencana alam, rakyat kitalah yang paling merasakan dampaknya. Dan untuk menanganinya dibutuhkan aksi bersama yang terkoordinasi, baik di tingkat global yang dijalankan oleh PBB maupun di tingkat kawasan Indo-Pasifik yang dijalankan oleh ASEAN. Namun harus kita katakan dengan jujur, efektivitas kerja ASEAN dan PBB seringkali terkendala dinamika geopolitik yang pada akhirnya mengakibatkan lunturnya spirit kerjasama, pudarnya semangat multilateralisme, dan digantikan dengan rule by the strong. Di mana ASEAN dan PBB punya pilihan yang jelas untuk terus konsisten menyuarakan penghormatan terhadap hukum internasional sebagai landasan interaksi antar bangsa dan paradigma kolaborasi yang inklusif. Mari bersama kita usung agenda pembangunan yang lebih adil bagi negara berkembang, termasuk hak untuk maju dan untuk sejahtera. Reformasi tata kelola global harus kita gelorakan agar tetap fit for purpose and fit for its time. Mari perkuat kerjasama antara ASEAN dan PBB demi kebaikan rakyat di dunia. Terima kasih. Dan dengan ini saya nyatakan KTT ke-13 ASEAN Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa dibuka. Selanjutnya saya mengundang Yang Mulia Antonio Guterres, Sekretaris Jenderal PBB untuk menyampaikan pidato pembukaannya. Yang Mulia dipersilahkan.
Your Majesty, Excellencies, Mr. Chair, President Joko Widodo, thank you for your warm welcome. And allow me to express my enormous appreciation for the wisdom and effectiveness in which you have not only leading ASEAN, but I remember the G20 last year with a fantastic contribution to improve international relations in our unfortunately divided world. Congratulations, Mr. President. And allow me also to welcome Prime Minister Xanana Guzmão with the presence of Timor-Leste for the first time as observer in ASEAN. Your Majesty, Excellencies, the ASEAN-UN Comprehensive Partnership is more important than ever. We face tests as far as the eye can see, from the climate emergency to a global cost of living crisis, to raging conflicts, to growing poverty, hunger and inequalities. And all these challenges are aggravated by rising geopolitical tensions. There is a real risk of fragmentation, of a great fracture in world economic and financial systems, with diverging strategies on technology and artificial intelligence and conflicting security frameworks. And I commend ASEAN for your vital role in building bridges of understanding all over the world. ASEAN has played an extremely important role as a center that convenes all those that unfortunately represent the most dramatic divisions in today's world. And this series of summits is the demonstration of that fundamental convening role of ASEAN. And we need it in a world that is increasingly multipolar, but requires strong multilateral institutions to go with it, based on equity, solidarity, and universality. Your Majesty, Excellencies, I am grateful for your steadfast support for multilateral solutions and your contribution of over 5,000 peacekeepers from ASEAN countries. Today, allow me to focus on three critical areas. First, advancing peace through diplomacy. ASEAN's convening power, commitment to dialogue, and experience in conflict prevention are crucial pillars of stability. Today, tensions remain high, from the Korean Peninsula to the South China Sea. I am grateful to ASEAN member states for your pursuit of dialogue and peaceful dispute resolution rooted in the respect for international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Your Majesty, Excellencies, since we gathered last year, the situation in Myanmar has further deteriorated. Brutal violence, worsening poverty, and systematic repression are crushing hopes for a return to democracy. The conflict is exacerbating existing inequalities and vulnerabilities faced by women and girls, including sexual violence, forced marriage, and human trafficking. More and more people are crossing borders in desperate search for safety and protection, and the situation is untenable. Over 1 million Rohingya remain in Bangladesh, in the world's largest refugee camp. And regrettably, the conditions for their safe, voluntary, and dignified return are not yet in sight. Much more is needed. I fully appreciate the principled approach of ASEAN through the 5-point consensus, and I urge all countries to seek a unified strategy towards Myanmar. And I also acknowledge the determined efforts of the chair of ASEAN, Indonesia, to engage all sides of the conflict in political dialogue. And my call to the military authorities of Myanmar is clear: free all detained leaders and political prisoners, open the door towards the full restoration of democratic rule. Your Majesty, Excellencies, we must also end our assault against the planet. ASEAN ranks amongst the most biodiversity-rich regions and is highly vulnerable to natural disasters. We can still limit the worst impacts and meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. I've put forward the Climate Solidarity Pact, in which all big emitters make extra efforts to cut emissions and wealthier countries support emerging economies to do so. And I have proposed an acceleration agenda that calls on developed countries to reach net zero as close as possible to 2040 and the emerging economies as close as possible to 2050. ASEAN is uniquely positioned to be a leader of an energy transition that is global, sustainable, just, inclusive, and equitable. I commend ASEAN member states that are pioneering just energy transition partnerships like Indonesia and Vietnam. And I commend all who are accelerating the phase-out of coal and jump-starting a fair and inclusive renewables revolution. But greater ambition is still needed, along with much greater support. Developed countries must finally deliver on their commitments to developing countries. Your Majesty, Excellencies, resources are also central in the third area for action, rescuing the Sustainable Development Goals. I've called for deep and structural changes to make global frameworks, including the Bretton Woods system, more representative of today's economic and political realities, and also more responsive to the needs of developing countries. Such change will not happen overnight, and I have proposed concrete steps we can take now, including a Sustainable Development Goal stimulus of $500 billion a year, to the benefit of developing countries, for them to be able to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. These and other action would catalyze SDG progress and help developing countries invest in key transitions across energy, food, digital education, health, decent jobs, and social protection. Your Majesty, Excellencies, I count on ASEAN member states to help raise global ambition in the vital months ahead. And you can always count on my wholehearted support to shape a future of peace and prosperity for the people of Southeast Asia and the world. Thank you.
Terima kasih Yang Mulia. Selanjutnya sebelum mulai sesi pleno yang akan dilakukan secara tertutup, dengan hormat saya mohon awak media untuk meninggalkan ruangan pertemuan. Terima kasih.